Move it! Move it! Move it!
Backup.
I am the backup.
We open up in Hamburg, Germany at the German National Opera, where an orchestra team is preparing for rehearsals, though some armed gangsters are approaching towards them. They start to disperse as the team is not aware. And when their conductor arrives, they begin the rehearsals, but shortly the gangsters arrive to shoot in the air. The rescue team led by John has arrived, and he gives them the final instructions as the gangsters announce on a live stream that they have taken over and need a ransom of $300 million. John informs everyone to wait for his orders before shooting, but the leader of the gangsters pulls out one woman and shoot her dead, which prompts Matteo to defy John's orders and shoot at the gangsters. Without any other choice, John informs all the other tactical unit to open fire and eliminate the gangsters, which brings about a fight in which John's tactical unit show a lot of expertise and manage to wipe out most of the gangsters. After a short time of restless bullets, John comes to blame Matteo for defying his orders, but it seems he had been shot and not in a good condition. Suddenly, one of the gangsters who had disguised as a hostage stands up and Matteo finishes him, but unluckily John gets shot dead. 5 years later in Romania, Matteo is retired special force and working in a sawmill, though his life seems unpleasant after what happened to John, and when he gets a photo, we flash back to the good times he had with John's family. On payday, he announces his retirement, hence booking a ticket to Bucharest and sit in a van to leave, though on the other hand, in Amsterdam, the Interpol team, led by Agent Shira, have intercepted a drug shipment and have held mafias who come from different mafia groups. They hit one of them and take him away as one gangster reports to the mob boss named Shaban at Interpol has intercepted their shipment. It turns out that one of the captives is an undercover Interpol agent who helped in the interception of this drug shipment, and Shira informs him that he needs to press more because they need to arrest the mob bosses. Matteo has arrived in Amsterdam as we get introduced to Paul, a businessman who deals in cryptocurrencies, and over the phone he informs his client that everything is going well, but upon sitting on the computer to track his cryptographs, it doesn't seem well. Matteo arrives at John's house where he finds his daughter named Ingi, who he tells to call her mom named Helen, who gets amazed upon seeing him and invite him inside for coffee. While inside, Matteo learns that Helen is now married to Paul, and Helen blames him for not attending John's burial, yet he was like a brother to him. Matteo apologizes that it was his fault John died, which Helen doesn't welcome because she had moved on and didn't want to get reminded about it again. Matteo moves out to leave, but Helen calls him back to stay for a while as Shaban gets misunderstandings with his chef over the dish he prepares, which doesn't attract clients in his restaurant. Helen informs Matteo that he can use some of John's remained items if he wishes, and that it is good to see him again after a long time, though Shaban and his men have realized that there is a mole within them. Paul finds Matteo home with Ingi, and Helen informs him that he was John's friend and will be staying for a while, and after dinner, Matteo sits outside and gets memories while with John in Afghanistan when they were on a mission talking about their families, and John informed him that Helen was pregnant. Ingi informs her mom that she liked Matteo before sleeping as Paul moves to have a little chat with Matteo, who informs him that there's always something to fight for. Helen informs Paul that he has nothing to worry about Matteo since they had gone through a lot together with John, as Matteo finds a note from Ingi asking him not to leave without goodbye. In the morning, he moves out for jogging, and on his way back, he finds Helen and Ingi leaving for school, and she requests him to stay with her dog. At work, Paul gets visited by Shaban, who has come to inquire about his 15 million euro missing on the account, and Paul tries to explain to him that there's a little complication on the crypto market, but it's going to be solved soon. He requests for one day as Shaban looks at a photo of his family and remind him that he has one day, but on moving outside, the Interpol undercover agent is tracking them, but when he moves inside, it's learned that they're tracking him as well. Bored with his life, Matteo tries to do some carpentry work before Helen comes to invite him for an outing where he gets a good time with them, mostly with Ingi. Worried, Paul returns home broken, and when Helen asks him the matter, he only informs her that he has some account calculations to work out, but doesn't tell her the truth about Shaban. Mateo continues with his exercises, and while some tourists are on their adventure, gets shocked by a dead body hanged on a bridge, and it is learned that he was murdered by Shaban's men after realizing he was the mole working with Interpol. Shira and her partner arrive at the scene as Mateo stays home to continue with his carpentry work. Over the news, they announce a decline in cryptocurrency as Paul receives a call from Shaban demanding his money, as he was granted only 1 day, but Paul informs him that he will fix it though Shaban sends his men to work out the issue. Shira and her partner realize that the gangsters were sending them a message as Engie moves to tease Mateo about his scars before hugging him tightly, which Helen notices. Paul calls Helen that he wouldn't be able to come over as he has some business to handle, and while out for pizza, Engie presents a drawing to Mateo as Helen asks him stay a little longer for Engie's sake. Suddenly, some gangsters arrive and hit Mateo with a butt, and when Engie notices that she runs back to stop them. Mateo saves her from a hit, but she gets kidnapped while Mateo gets hit down, but he gets a bicycle to chase the car as Helen informs Paul about the kidnap, and he calls Shaban to plead, but he only hangs up. Mateo keeps the chase on, and shortly he jumps on top of one of the cars and starts to fight them, which later brings about a collision with another car, hence Mateo falling on the other, and get memories while still with John telling him how they are a family. Mateo wakes up in a hospital, though handcuffed, as Shira introduces herself to Helen and Paul, but shortly Mateo moves out. They release him, and Shira asks him about his next move, and he informs her that he's going to rescue Engie, and she informs him about Shaban and the other gangs related, and according to their research, Engie's kidnap is personal, but when they ask Helen and Paul if they know anything about it, Paul stays silent. Shira gives Mateo her business card, and when the others leave, Shira and her partner try to figure out the connection between Shaban and the kidnap, though one of Shaban's men notices all this going on. Engie is now in captive at Shaban's club, where he gets informed that Mateo left the hospital, though Mateo, while holding a drawing Engie gave him, he recalls when John asked him to be Engie's godfather. He gets out some items to go for a rescue, and when Paul comes to warn him, he accidentally slips about Shaban's connection with the Thais, hence Mateo realizing that Paul knows something, and on confronting him, he reveals the truth that he owes Shaban 15 million euros. Mateo gets John's guns and order Paul to call Shaban and make him believe that he has the money, which he does, and they agree on a trade for Engie. Shaban agrees to the deal and order him to deliver the money at a construction site, as Mateo promises Helen that he will bring Engie back. Interpol has learned that Paul knows something, but shortly Mateo ambushes Shira's partner and leaves with his car, but Helen invites him inside for coffee, where he calls Paul for a talk, but Paul gets afraid knowing he is from Interpol. Mateo has arrived at the construction site for the exchange, where he meets some of the gangsters who he asked for Engie, but they shockingly tell him that they don't have her, as the deal was only to bring the money, so Engie could be spared. They take his bag forcefully, but when the team leader goes to check it, it turns out it's a bomb, which explodes to hit some gangsters, and Mateo hits. The rest then, after drag the survived leader for interrogations. At home, Helen gets captured by one of Shaban's men, who gets into a fight with the Interpol agent, and after a short scuffle, the gangster cuts him multiple times with a blade, and it's only Helen who shoots to scare him away. Paul packs to leave, as Mateo ties up the gangster he captured and torture him for Engie's whereabouts, but he insists first before finally breaking down to reveal the location. Helen attends to the wounded Interpol agent, but when he asks Paul for assistance, he reluctantly ignores them to move out to head for his car, though one of Shaban's men had been waiting and finishes him off. Shira has arrived as the gangster leaves, and while inside, Shira comforts his partner that he would receive a medallion on his heroism. Mateo informs Shira to bring backup as he heads for the rescue, though Shaban seems worried after not hearing from his men, hence sitting down with Engie to ask her about Mateo if he will come for her rescue, and she replies that he would come. Mateo has arrived at the club, and when the bodyguard try to stop him from moving up, he engages them as Shira arrives as well and start to shoot out some gangsters, and the fight gets tense inside when Shira and Mateo team up to clean the place. Shaban decides to run as Shira and Mateo finish the men inside, though Shaban tells his men stay behind, and when Mateo with Shira come across them, a 2 versus 2 fight breaks up as Shaban keeps running with Engie. The fight continues. Mateo decides to go alone for Shaban, and when he meets him with Inja, Shaban warns him not to come closer or else he would shoot Inja dead. Suddenly, Mateo throws a blade into Shaban's heart, though he shoots him as well, but luckily Mateo survives, and Inja moves to check on him. 6 months later, Inji is with Helen, wondering if Mateo will ever be back, as Mateo is again alone on a boat sailing on the waters. In a hospital, Shira's partner receives his Medal of Honor as Shira arrives to tell him that they have more work to do, bringing the movie to the end. Thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Your support really helps us grow and bring you more amazing content.